Hello everybody, I wanted to give you a little bit of an update on how we are busy with this farm here in Portugal, in the middle of Portugal near the coast, about 5 minutes from the coast. It's a little bit of a grey day now, and I'm going to walk along one of the abundantly growing basil, onions, sweet potato. In the end there you see amaranth, and in between here and there some onions and beets and cabbage, broccoli, spinach. That is about it, chard in the end. And what is making peppers also, it's a lot of stuff, so we call it abundance farming because we're mixing it all, and a lot of ways you could say that's not efficient. But you also have to realize that we are trying to accumulate biomass. So a lot of crops that are growing are very good in just harvesting water from the soil, and we chop and drop that down and make them our allies, in the sense that they become very nice biomass for the soil to later on become another form of water retention and nutrition. So I'm going to show you some details on how this is done. And for example, this is wild amaranth. It's pretty nice to see. We have been drip irrigating, as you can see. What I always do, and this is in general, there's only some plants where I don't do this, which like grass that are super fast in growing back. Like this grass, for example, I would pull it out. But look what happens when you pull something out of the ground. You get this effect of big disturbance, which you don't want, because you're pulling weed seeds up, your soil structure is changing and not for the good. So what you really want is to chop down, and this whole amaranth plant I just chopped by the roots at the top, just below the soil, gets a nice mulch in the pathway, and you can chop it several times more if you want, if you have time for that, if they're not too bulky, so you can walk over it. And what stays in the ground is a very nice root system, which might regrow into another amaranth plant, and you can call it a weed or whatever you want to call it. But in my case, in this system where we abundantly use all these weeds, and this is a good example here. Actually, you can see here this just cut, or just several weeks ago cut stump of this plant. This is actually also an edible. It's a dandelion family, and these are snapping off just like that. You can cut them below the soil so they come back later, so they don't have to take so much time. Here you go. Very insignificant if you're looking at bigger areas to farm, you would say. But that's not really true. That's not really the case, I feel. I'm farming now. This is 1 acre, and at the same time we're doing somewhere else also about 1 acre. And we use this method with a no-dig approach. So you can see the compost here, which is abundantly applied as well. It's an expensive initial investment, but it makes a very big difference, because you're suppressing most weeds in the beginning, so all your plants get this advantage. Here's a voluntary tomato plant just coming in between. Somehow some compost ended up there, and I basically can choose whether I want a tomato here or I want just the crops that I intended to plant here. And sometimes the crops that I didn't intend to plant are growing better than the ones that I did, and so why would you then actually try to stimulate and focus on what you tried to plant but doesn't work? Why don't you just focus on what does work and give that a big boost by chopping the things down that you have planted? This can be the case in some situations. This is sweet potato here. Here again, you can see a wild amaranth has been chopped, and it came back also again. But as you can see, I'm chopping it, putting it in the pathway and leaving it here. And it's not really visible what happens if you do stuff like that. But I do know that I don't really have a problem with the weeds. It feels actually that I'm not really weeding. It feels more that I'm mulching. And that's actually very nice, so that makes working very pleasant. It's not like working like, oh, I have to take care of that, I have to take that out, I have to get rid of those because they're making my life difficult or they're making my plants' life difficult. It's more the opposite if you look at it good. You're chopping them down, so you're creating light opportunity again for the plants that you intend to grow. And you also create more root space because the roots underneath also have their communication. You can understand when I chop down something on the top below soil, there is this reason for this weed or wild amaranth in this situation to respond to that and try to make more photosynthesis, but it can because you just chop that whole solar panel of it down, so their leaves, and therefore you give advantage to the plants that you grow around it. And of course there are crops like grass in general, like it grows so fast and it has such a strong root system that it's hard to work them that way. You cannot say I'm gonna mow every little bit of grass like that just below the soil. It's just not really efficient because it ends up being too fast. Um, Having said that, you can actually make a bed just on top of grass. That is the case here. So you can see here, this is a piece of the bed we never did because in the beginning we installed our drip lines and there's like 1 meter of bed we never did because, well, it's hard to explain. We still gonna do it. The next time I'm gonna make this bed, I will put also a lot of compost here. I mean, I basically will not change much. I will just mow this very severe, this grass, till it's flat to the base of the soil. And then I will add this compost. So the grass will come back eventually, but by then I've already harvested some of the crops that I've planted in it. So this is something very, very important to consider. You can actually tarp it temporarily, and by doing so you get a crop, and the grass actually is not of a big concern. It's even with the giant reeds here, I mean, they're popping up here. There are, if you're talking about something that grows fast, like a grass, this is amazing. And I mean, I chop them and they drop in the pathway, become biomass, prevent other weeds to grow later. And that is a bit how it works, although there's a lot more to explain, a lot more to understand about it. And it's something you also experience per area, how different things react. You gotta know also your soil and your area to know which plants are the most vigorous, how fast they come back and how slow they come back, and how easy they are to pull out or to chop. And what I like to focus all the time on chopping instead of pulling, because pulling feels to me too destructive. It just feels like, why? There's this really nice root system underground, which if you chop the plant, it dies off, makes carbon in the soil, and if you chop it and it regrows, so you have more biomass on the topsoil to cut down. So like I said, there is some plants that grow back too fast, and you might have to develop other methods to that, but I definitely believe this is the way to look at it. For example, here we have not wild amaranth, we have amaranth, red amaranth, which we kind of, we intended it to grow here, but never with the idea to harvest amaranth seed and sell it or something. Just more to see if we could grow a lot of biomass with it. And because it's so abundantly growing, you can see here on that's green beans and sweet potatoes. So the low growing bean variety and sweet potatoes. And then on the other hand, over here we have chard and aubergine all the way up there. Uh, this this amaranth is gonna have to go down because it's just taking all the light, and probably eventually will start becoming going to seed. And when it goes to seed, it will do something with the soil, so it will change some mycorrhizal bacteria which is aligned with. This is Ernst Scott's explanation. I'm not fully comprehending the whole theory, but I definitely feel and intuitively that this makes so much sense. At least in combination what I do here, it makes all the sense. So what he basically is saying that when these crops go to seed, the whole soil ambience around their root system creates this this situation of telling to the mycorrhizal fungi underground that it doesn't need more water, at least not such big amounts that it did need in the beginning. It just needs nutrients for making the seeds. And of course that has effects on all the plants that growing around it in the area. So the other plants then will also have less access of water because this amaranth is not connected anymore to those water harvesting mycorrhiza, you could say. So what we're doing now when we're going to chop and drop it, we're basically stimulating the amaranth to. I can show you how we do that. The plant is very fresh, so you can see we got a really nice material, super fresh. And it goes directly to the ground and it regrows, so it stimulates the plant again to connect with this water harvesting mycorrhiza to create more water pumping effect, more of a vivid system which says, okay guys, let's create more let's communicate with this water harvesting mycorrhiza instead of saying, hey, we're gonna slow down, we're gonna go to seed, we're gonna go reproduce. What they basically will do now when I chop them is they're gonna give an extra boost again. They're gonna photosynthesize more to make more material, which I can eventually chop and drop again. So I'm gonna go through this and I'm gonna show you the end result. It's quite a few plants, but the benefit of it, chopping it, is having the mulch on the ground, having all the light coming into my sweet potatoes and my beans. And so I think it's worth it to I go slowly along the road to give you a bit of an idea. You can see this beautiful aubergine coming here along, and they still don't really suffer from the fact that there is less light. They're beautiful plants. The chard also has been chopped already twice and still making these beautiful leaves. But you can see this chard plant is basically shading this aubergine, which has beautiful fruits still. So it's all in a perfect balance at this point. Actually, it's hard to see how good this amaranth is growing, to realize I have to make a decision. Do I want chard? Do I want aubergine? Do I want sweet potatoes? Do I want beans? And what do you intend to grow in the beginning? So I say abundance farming is the right way to call it, because you're really having to deal with abundance of crops, and you have to make a decision between those crops to see which one you want to have as a crop, and also which one will favor most of your interference, if you understand what I mean. So I'm gonna go through it, and basically will work like this. It's just like very simple. The plants are still young, so you can see I chop it. It's hard to do, but and now they will get a few more chops smaller. But now once you can get light in, and you get all these little new shoots that will reconnect with and try to make more photosynthesis to create this bigger carbon root system underground, communicating to all the other plants. Let's go get harvest water, let's grow, 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 instead of let's stabilize, let's make seeds. So I hope I explained this a little bit better, and I hope Hans Gertz agree with me. At least something in his explanation believes me to understand it the right way. Either way, this is how we do it here, and it works for now very good. And yeah, let's go. Let's go. I'm gonna chop this all down. Yeah, you can see this chart, the same problem. This is beautiful crop. I mean, I can still harvest and eat all this chart, but it also goes to seed. So I have too many plants that go to seed. So I don't need all that for seed production for next year. I can chop a lot down. You see all this dead matter here on the ground. This is like the result of several chops and drops of chard. And it nicely protects the drip irrigation for now. Of course, when all this aubergine is done, winter's coming, I will be mowing this flat and start with a new crop. So then the drip line temporarily goes out. I will move it and mow it flat and see if the soil is very compacted. If it is very compacted, we will use some broadfork. But in generally, we just add some compost and maybe some chicken fertilizer to give it a little bit more of a boost. But the drip irrigation obviously is pretty nice. I wished we could do without. Like Ernst Gertz also makes you believe in a lot of videos. But we have to also just grow, and yeah, this is a result of where we don't use drip irrigation. This is corn and amaranth, and you see there is a difference obviously. Now I have to say that the soil below here is also different. This is more hard clay, and we didn't use excessive amount of compost. So excessive amount of compost, or a lot of compost, and chicken pellets and water, and then here no chicken pellet, or a few chicken pellets in thin lines for the corn, but very insignificant. Probably didn't really make effect because it didn't got wet enough, so it didn't really bind with the soil and the soil organism. So yeah, you can say all that makes a difference. So water always makes a big difference, and yeah, in this case the drip has helped us a lot, of course, but it is growing and we're not irrigating, so this is purely growing on moisture from the air. Okay, so I give you an update later on the results from all this chopping and dropping. I have here done already some. You can see all these buds everywhere, and now there's light, and you can see there's some sorghum coming up. Same story, not really something I'm gonna eat, but definitely something I like to chop and drop. This in the back here is chard going to seed, and then you can see there all the green beans and the sweet potato there on the ground. I hope you can see this in the video. Okay, I actually not sure if I will update this video or edit it, because I feel most of it is shown. So I hope you enjoyed it, and see you in the next video. Thank you.